For most Americans, a full grocery shelf looks like normal life. The milk is there, the bread is there, produce is stacked in the bins. Frozen meals are behind the glass, meat is still in the case. The store appears stocked, and the system appears to be working. But the receipt tells a more complicated story. Behind every stocked shelf is a long chain of costs that most shoppers never see. Farms, processors, refrigerated warehouses, diesel trucks, distribution centers, labor, electricity, packaging, and retail operations all have to function before a product reaches the checkout lane. When those costs rise, the shelf can still look full while the household budget absorbs the pressure. This is the hidden cost of keeping America's grocery shelves full. In May 2026, food at home prices were still 2.7% higher than a year earlier. Grocery inflation had not disappeared, it had shifted into the everyday cost of keeping food moving through the system. Some categories were under greater pressure. Fruits and vegetables were up 6.1% year over year. Non-alcoholic beverages were up 5.8%. For a family walking through the store, those numbers are not abstract. They show up as smaller carts, fewer extras, more price comparisons, and harder choices at checkout. The system begins far from the grocery aisle. Food does not usually move straight from a farm to a shopping cart. It passes through a complex marketing chain. According to USDA data, farmers received 18.5 cents of each food at home dollar in 2024. Most of the money spent at the grocery store went somewhere after the farm gate. It went into processing, transportation, warehousing, packaging, wholesale operations, retail labor, energy, financing, refrigeration, and the many other steps required to make food available in the right place, at the right time, and in the right condition. That is why grocery prices can remain under pressure even when crops are grown, warehouses are operating, and shelves are stocked. The shelf is only the final stop. For fresh food, frozen food, dairy, meat, and many prepared products, one of the most important hidden systems is the cold chain. Food has to be kept cold while it is stored, transported, unloaded, and displayed. That requires refrigerated warehouses, refrigerated trucks, energy, equipment, maintenance, and trained workers. In 2025, the United States had 3.99 billion gross cubic feet of refrigerated warehouse capacity across 931 refrigerated warehouses. That figure shows the scale of the infrastructure behind an ordinary grocery trip. To a shopper, a frozen meal is a box in a freezer. A gallon of milk is a routine purchase. A package of beef is dinner. But behind those items is a cold storage network that has to operate continuously. If that system becomes more expensive to run, the cost does not remain invisible forever. Diesel is another hidden cost. As of June 22, 2026, the average U.S. on-highway diesel price was $4.83 per gallon. That was more than $1 higher than a year earlier. Diesel matters because grocery supply chains rely heavily on trucks. Trucks move most U.S. freight by weight, and grocery products often move several times before reaching a store. A product may travel from a farm to a processor, from a processor to a warehouse, from a warehouse to a distribution center, and then from that distribution center to a store. Each step can involve fuel. When diesel rises, it can put pressure on the entire system. It affects refrigerated carriers, long-haul trucking, local delivery, and the cost of supplying stores in cities, suburbs, small towns, and rural communities. Diesel alone does not explain grocery inflation. Every increase at the pump does not become an immediate increase on the shelf. But diesel is one of the hidden costs inside the grocery bill. For ordinary households, that matters because groceries are only one part of the monthly budget. Families are also paying rent, mortgages, insurance, utilities, car payments, and credit cards. When food prices rise, even gradually, they compete with every other fixed cost. A family may not experience a 2.7% increase as one dramatic moment. They experience it as a pattern. A receipt that used to feel manageable becomes harder to ignore. A few items are removed before checkout. A brand name becomes a store brand. A weekly trip becomes more planned, more cautious, and less flexible. Retailers are under pressure as well. In June 2026, Kroger's results and commentary showed that inflationary pressure, transportation costs, and fuel costs were affecting the business environment. At the same time, consumers were becoming more selective and more focused on promotions. That signal matters because it shows pressure on both sides of the checkout lane. Retailers face higher costs to operate and stock stores. Consumers face higher prices and tighter budgets. Retailers cannot ignore costs, but shoppers cannot absorb unlimited increases. That tension is one reason the grocery aisle has become such a visible measure of the economy. The store may look normal, but normal is expensive to maintain. A full shelf requires coordination. Food has to be produced, processed, stored safely, transported, delivered before it spoils, and priced in a way that covers costs while still bringing shoppers into the store. When any part of that system becomes more expensive, the final price can become stubborn. This is especially true for perishable food. Fruits and vegetables, which were up 6.1% year over year in May 2026, depend on timing, handling, refrigeration, labor, and transport. They cannot sit in storage indefinitely. They have to move through the system quickly. That makes them more exposed to pressure inside the supply chain. For shoppers, the effect is straightforward. Fresh food becomes harder to fit into the weekly budget. A family may still buy produce, but they may buy less, switch items, or focus more closely on what is on sale. The same pattern applies to other parts of the grocery basket. Non-alcoholic beverages were up 5.8% year over year. That points to another category where prices continued to rise. For households, these increases add up not because one item changes everything, but because many small increases land on the same receipt. The grocery bill is cumulative, a few cents here, a dollar there. A higher price on produce, a higher price on drinks, a higher price on refrigerated or frozen goods. The final total is what the household has to manage, and groceries are not optional. People can delay a vacation. They can put off a furniture purchase. They can drive less when fuel prices rise, but food has to be bought again and again. That is why even moderate grocery inflation can feel severe. It repeats. Every week, the pressure returns. There is also the cost of waste. USDA has estimated that 30 to 40% of the U.S. food supply is wasted. That does not mean every cost is paid directly by one shopper at one checkout lane. But it does show that the food system carries inefficiencies. Food can be lost or wasted at different points, even after the cost of producing, transporting, cooling, and handling it has already been incurred. For a household, waste has a more immediate meaning. People pay closer attention to what they buy, what they can store, and what they can use before it goes bad. When groceries are expensive, waste becomes harder to accept. For workers and truckers, the pressure shows up differently. Higher diesel prices can squeeze carriers, especially when fuel costs move faster than contracts or business conditions are difficult. Refrigerated trucking adds another layer because the load has to be protected. Food cannot simply arrive whenever it arrives. It has to arrive safely and at the right temperature. For small businesses and restaurants, higher food and delivery costs can force difficult choices. They may raise prices, accept lower margins, simplify menus, or change purchasing patterns. None of those choices are easy when customers are already watching prices closely. For retirees and fixed-income households, grocery inflation can be especially difficult. Income may not adjust quickly enough to match the combined pressure of food, utilities, insurance, and medical costs. A higher grocery bill can mean cutting somewhere else. For food banks, Higher food and logistics costs can make every dollar harder to stretch. This is why the story is larger than grocery stores. It is about the cost of maintaining ordinary life. The current picture is not a dramatic breakdown. The data does not support saying that America's grocery system is collapsing. Shelves remain broadly supplied, stores are open, food is moving. But the evidence does show continuing pressure. Food at home prices are still rising year over year. Diesel is higher than a year earlier. Cold storage remains a major part of the system. Retailers are dealing with inflation and transportation costs. Consumers are becoming more cautious. The key distinction is simple. Availability is not the same as affordability. A product can be on the shelf and still feel expensive. That is the quiet pressure facing many middle-class households. The system is still functioning, but functioning at a cost. That cost moves through the economy in receipts, household budgets, delivery routes, and retail margins. What remains uncertain is how much of the current pressure will continue through the rest of 2026. Future grocery inflation readings will matter. Diesel prices will matter. Distillate inventories will matter. USDA food price updates will matter. Retail earnings from major grocery chains will matter. Cold storage conditions, freight rates, and weather events could all influence the story. For now, the shelves are full. Keeping them full is not free. And for millions of Americans, the hidden cost becomes visible every time the receipt is printed.